Even if it wasn't the series' flagship, Rathalos and its female counterpart Rathian are still hugely successful wyverns, having colonised much of the known world with the exception of polar and snowy regions. They have one of the widest ranges of any large monster. But they vary considerably over that range as one would expect, and can do things quite differently to other flying wyverns too. For Monster Hunter's 20th anniversary, let's have a speculative look at what sets its king and queen apart. Unlike many other monsters in the series, a male Rathalos and his female Rathian actually maintain a considerable bond. Whilst Rathalos may well mate with other females too, he only properly helps one of them maintain the territory and rear the young. But despite the broad range of both sexes, the pair bond only seems present in certain areas. The maps mated pairs are recorded to be hunted in, the Old Swamp, Forest and Hills, Deserted Island, Ancestral Steppe, Ancient Forest, and Shrine Ruins, are all well-watered mosaics of variable terrain with open areas and forests containing a high density of herbivores. So it seems the three rules for their long-term partnering are plentiful food, permanent water sources, and a good nest site. The latter in particular may be in high demand. As large animals with large clutch sizes, they provide a tempting target for nest thieves, and are also limited in where they can nest. But why is such a strong pair bond partly unique to the Raths? And this preferred habitat may provide the answer. It provides a high-quality but highly variable environment, with key areas vital to success like nesting areas. These provide a single, highly important and sessile resource in an environment where there is likely to be lots of competition for it, due to its high productivity being able to support a lot of Raths. So it's an environment that encourages cooperation that's mutually beneficial for both, with other competing individuals providing sufficient pressure to enable teaming up with your mate to better defend that resource. Similar situations resulted in the proposed social evolution of other predators, such as lion sociality, with females living together due to a productive but highly heterogeneous landscape, encouraging social behaviour to defend these higher quality areas. Rathalos may also benefit from sticking around with a single female to help defend her after mating in the interests of her then being able to better rear his progeny if they work together as a pair. Rathalos could try and hedge his bets with just multiple females, but a guarded female likely rears more young more reliably than multiple unguarded ones, and then Rathalos often mates with multiple ones anyway. Other environments likely don't produce these same pressures or benefits, both for the Raths and other wyverns. Low productivity environments likely don't have the sufficient resources to support long-term pairs with other large predators in an environment, and/or homogeneous environments don't encourage the same focus on certain areas that would likely promote sociality. In an ideal situation for Rathalos, this could even result in lion-like prides of Raths, with the constraints on Rath sociality much more stemming from female intraspecific hostility. Rathian are notably belligerent to one another, and won't share close territory, let alone nests, preventing true female sociality that would possibly prompt greater male sociality too. This may be the prompt for the aforementioned Rathalos infidelity though. The key habitat structures that are so attractive likely still draw in Rathian during the breeding season for them to try their luck, only to be repelled by the resident mated female. Rathalos likely sneaks in a quick roll in the hay before she pushes them away to get a few more potential young out there. The size of the typical prey taken, and the effects of having a sessile base for part of the year, are likely what prompt Rathian hostility in the first place, as partly discussed in the first video. That's also where the possible lion comparison ends. Unlike multiple females working together to catch larger prey that can then feed all of them and their cubs, Rathian are limited to Aptonoth at most, only enough for them, their mate, and their offspring at very most. So even if there may be sufficient prey abundance for multiple pairs, or even multiple Rathian in an area, the foraging times and efforts for making multiple kills instead of one big one may take up too much of the daylight period Raths forage in for greater social units, as well as social foraging likely not being necessary or beneficial for prey like Aptonoth full stop. Compared to other flying wyverns, some of which overlap with their habitats, the Raths may be unique in this regard due to differences in breeding behaviour. Whilst Legiana are unknown in this respect, Astalos don't need nests, just cover or rocky areas to lay their unguarded eggs that hatch into uncared for young, and then they have a diet of mainly invertebrates and smaller prey. Seregios are odd, in that they seem the most social wyverns of all, living in quarrelsome flocks, but their combative nature with each other, and lack of social behaviours, would seem to suggest that there's little cooperative behaviours, both in and out of the roost. When not breeding, Seregios presumably venture on lone, multi-day foraging missions, and only stick closer to their roosts around the breeding season. Physical adaptations that may suggest frequent taking of smaller prey also likely mean a broader diet, that in turn allows Seregios to live in larger groups, less taxing on the large prey base, as well as allowing Seregios to persist in these colonies in arid areas that presumably don't have a high large prey base. Their rarity and concentrations in colonies may similarly mean that Seregios don't have to defend nests from other social units, instead just handling the intra-colony aggression in their own. The colony structure providing protection from other wyverns, living in a more homogeneous environment, and a lack of intergroup aggression all likely result in nests not being at the same premium as with the Raths, and not having the prompt for long-term pairing. Once the young Raths are hatched, the role of their mother decides much of their fate. Those born into a nest of privilege will experience considerable benefits that last throughout much of their lives, and vice versa with the desert and jungle singleton females. In many species, who your parents are counts for a lot, and inheritance in the animal kingdom is well established. Either on maturity or death, many species bequeath resources to their offspring that give them a better start in life, or allow them to reach superior bodily conditions, and Rathian may be the same with their young. To start, Raths growing up in a two-parent nest in ideal conditions are likely in better condition themselves, growing faster into larger, healthier animals than their desert half-siblings, due to both more and better quality food in the environment, and better offspring provisioning and protection by both parents. So they're already off to a good start. But on maturity, the mother may also allow her young to take up territories near her own. The mention that Rathian that wind up in suboptimal habitats are displaced ones unable to find room nearby, as well as Rathalos appearing in far-flung locations unsuitable for breeding like volcanoes, and just generally having considerable traversing abilities, seem to suggest that dispersal is male-biased, and females are philopatric, establishing a territory near to where they were born, at least in ideal circumstances where the mother allows it. Some bird species will do just this too, budding off chunks of their superior productive territory to their offspring, which ultimately gives them a head start in life, and a longer one compared to their siblings who helped their parents or went for low-quality territories. And when their parents eventually die, they also get the very best territory to themselves too. So as well as growing up as healthier individuals, these Rathian likely get to inherit chunks of high-quality, ideal territory, rather than having to move to the desert or jungle. So whilst Rathian may not live in true social units, there is still an opportunity for something similar, in that a Rathian mother can seed the local surrounding territories with her own genetic lineage. Even if they're not living in a group, in a way she may preferentially still keep her offspring close, over having just random neighbouring individuals. Whereas the smaller, weaker desert Rathian are likely almost never able to break back into prime habitat areas themselves, relegating them to stay in the deserts for the bulk of their lives, except hopeful excursions to prime areas in the breeding season. The dice has already been cast on their lives and the lives of their chicks from the day they're conceived, and it's a relatively bleak outlook. Desert Rathian may struggle to cede territory to their own chicks due to the harshness of the environment, and a direct comparison between those and superior habitat individuals suggests that the former are more tolerant of one another, This may be especially prevalent if they can recognise their own kin whom they'd want to favour. For Rathalos, they presumably only settle on a territory a sufficient distance away from their birthplace, but the key factors of being raised as a healthier individual will still pay dividends on them claiming a future territory of their own, by just being better than desert-raised competition. This may be partially enforced by their unique wing patterning too. If wing patterns are heritable, then these may serve as easy identifiers of the lineage of other Raths. So a territorial female may well cut some slack to those with wing patterns like her own, as they're probably her own kin, whereas she'll show her trademark hostility to those without them. Animals that have similar signature markers do this, and show clear preferences for associating with those with similar patterns to their own that are likely based on kinship. For mating too, Rathian may avoid or reject any Rathalos with wing patterns too similar to their own, to avoid inbreeding. And so despite presumably avoiding inbreeding, populations of Raths likely still have some high degree of genetic structuring, stemming from their territorial breeding system and the impacts of inheritance on young. Whilst the Rathalos dispersing over great distances is the main source of genetic mixing and refreshment, areas may still be locally saturated by certain lineages. So despite being a widespread, successful and common wyvern, the Raths may have significant genetic structuring across their range, which is to say that individual populations may be genetically distinct from one another, albeit perhaps not to the range of a full subspecies, due to the gene flow provided by the dispersing males. This likely results in the noted differences reported and theorised on by the Guild between Raths of different areas, like those in the river valleys around Kokoto, the steppes near Valhabar, and the coastal plains around the Moga archipelago too. From the amount of morphs and possibly the phenotypic variation too, Raths likely have a comparatively high mutation rate among wyverns, that when locked into an area through the individual success of territorial individuals, can potentially and partially speciate into genuine subspecies like the ornate and precious metal Raths. This genetic structuring and silver spoon babies may explain why green Raths are still so common, compared to their seemingly superior pink and gold cousins. The nested individuals may be difficult to displace, and then still have considerable genetic saturation in the area, and if combined with dominant alleles too, results in gold and pink individuals getting little prevalence, even if they could use their apparently superior abilities to displace resident green Rathian. Many other flying wyverns canonically have, or at least appear to have, some level of metabolic control, typically an ability to raise their metabolic rate for greater levels of activity, and often in combat against the hunter or competitors. Whilst the rage mode is still present in Raths and could be rationalised as this, a far more useful trait could be to lower it, especially in single Rathian in arid areas. Anything that means you have to consume less food in a desert is already a winning idea, but as an adaptation it may be invaluable in avoiding predators. Seregios are likely a major predator in arid areas, themselves living in loose, argumentative colonies. Even if Seregios don't hunt as a social group, they can still have social aspects to their foraging. Many birds that nest socially or partly socially will rely on such social networks to find food. Vultures circling in their columns will both watch their own patch of land below them, but also the other vultures in the sky in the distance, heading in their direction if they see them descend to something, or if they see one of their neighbours start to rapidly change direction. Ospreys too. If nesting ospreys see another of their kind return with a fish, they will then fly in the direction they came from to start fishing themselves. So any Seregios returning to the roost after a successful hunt likely prompts the other roost mates to search that area too, especially in arid areas where prey resources are patchy, widely distanced from one another, and often social, as with the most common prey resources of Genprey, Cephalos and Delex. So all in all, if a Rathian is seen and attacked by a Seregios, even if she repels it, she can soon expect a dozen or more to come looking for the nest too. Staying put and staying hidden are the most important traits, and whilst Rathios can fight a single Seregios to a stalemate, it wouldn't be able to repeatedly repel a constant flow of them, even if they lived in arid areas. Thus, the longer a Rathian can hide on her nest, the better her chances are, for both her and the nest. And the ability to significantly lower her own metabolism would be a crucial advantage in that regard. Overall, the life of singleton Rathians may seem abysmal, but it seems that is just their lot in life. When faced with equality in our own species, it's often tempting to say that hard as their lives may be, at least animals don't have to deal with such unfairness, when this is actually untrue. Social species rarely live egalitarian lives, and low-ranking individuals live lives trapped in brutal unfairness, with little chance at upward social mobility. Rathians may move into prime areas on a yearly basis, to at least attempt a chance at courting a staying male, and getting a better territory. But the odds are stacked against them, not just with the resident animals, but their offspring too, providing staunch resistance already. Only luck may really be on their side occasionally. A perfectly timed hunt, freak incident of conflict with another monster, frenzy or curio outbreaks, or other such rare incidents of precise or mass mortality that freeze quality territories are likely the only things to grant them a vital reprieve. And yet, this may be just another prompt that leads Raths to being so successful. Lack of quality territories and aggressive displacement of fledged individuals may lead to both sexes travelling far and wide to try and find unoccupied territories. It was this behaviour that led to them crossing the channel between the new and old worlds, and spreading across both major continents to colonise and even partly reshape them. This amazing ability to turn their hardships into their successes is just another factor making them some of the most successful creatures in the franchise, and the face of the series. Thanks for watching, and thanks as ever to my patrons, the Supris Duper, Samburgo, Ksandum, Holden, Nickname 3110, Erengar Steiny, Flyguns Archives, Hui Hui, Original Username, Evilly, Howleth, Archosaur Queen, Seth Fake Last Name, Zacer, Dodecablos, and Bazugazu Bakuhatsu Bakumatsu for their ongoing support to the channel. And see, I told you there was more Monster Hunter content to come before World War Z was finished? And a happy 20th anniversary to the series. It's pretty crazy to think Monster Hunter has now been going for 20 years, and I've been playing for 19 of them. Despite my love for that first title as one of the few Western players who aren't yet fossilised, I definitely never thought it would be a series that would achieve that much mainline success, nor become Capcom's golden goose. But I've also never been more pleased to be wrong. I wasn't sure entirely if I'd make something for the anniversary, but I also did feel like I had even more to say about the Raths still. And then what better way for my channel to honour the franchise than by revisiting its star monster. So I can only hope you all enjoyed it and learned something new in the process too. Thanks to Kamen Rider Moten, back in business creating their excellent digital artwork to enrich the channel content. For more of their artwork or HD versions of pieces from past videos, you can find their content at the links provided in the description, so by all means head over to find out more. If you're keen to get your own pieces created too, then they're now accepting commissions, so you can now have all your own behavioural headcanons created digitally too. If you need further convincing of their abilities, just look at the finished products versus my initial concept sketches of them. There are limited spaces per month though, so hop on to be first in the queue. On a similar note, if you've been hankering for more dragon ecology whilst I whittle away World War Z, then you could do no better than following Sawyer Lee, who recently joined YouTube as well. His Dragon Slayer Codex has the best originally made dragons I've ever seen, all detailed with rich ecology and behaviour, like a vastly more in-depth version of the old Dragonology books, but best of all with excellent illustrations displaying it. So by all means head over to his channel to start checking out the Codex. More typical Monster Hunter content will also resume in April too, with the Patreon poll for the next video now out, so the ball is already rolling and hopefully I'll see you there for it.